Mara was 17, a bright, restless girl from a small coastal town in Maine. One weekend, she worked part-time helping at a thrift shop downtown. A shipment of donated boxes came in. Old clothes, books, and one strange toy wrapped in faded newspaper. It was a Labubu doll, but not like the colorful ones she'd seen online. This one was different. Its fur was gray, brittle, almost matted with ash. Its glass eyes had turned cloudy, but when she held it under the light, they seemed to shimmer, like something was moving inside. She laughed it off, placed it on the display shelf, and forgot about it. That night, after locking up, Mara swore she heard a sound inside the store as she turned the key. A thin, high-pitched giggle that trailed her out into the street. She brushed it off as exhaustion. The next morning, she came in to open the shop. The Labubu wasn't on the shelf anymore. She found it sitting at the checkout counter, propped neatly in the chair she used. No one else had keys. From then on, customers avoided it. One old woman glanced at it once and muttered, "That shouldn't be here." She refused to step inside. Mara started dreaming about the doll. Dreams where it stood at the end of her bed, its head twitching side to side, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. Every morning, she'd wake with her blankets on the floor and scratches on her arms. She tried leaving it at the store, but one evening, she came home to find it sitting on her kitchen counter. The thrift shop owner swore he hadn't touched it. That night, her dog refused to go near it, barking and growling until his throat went raw. The next morning, she found the dog dead at the foot of the stairs. No wounds, no struggle, just eyes wide open, fixed in terror. Desperate, Mara researched the origin. She discovered a forum thread from collectors in Asia. One post stood out. "If you ever find the gray fur Labubu, don't touch it. It was recalled years ago. Owners kept dying, fires, accidents, children disappearing in their sleep. The company denied it, but everyone who owned one ended up cursed." Mara slammed her laptop shut, but when she turned, the doll was sitting on her desk. Her laptop camera light was on, recording. She tried to destroy it. She drove to the cliffs, stuffed it into a canvas bag, and hurled it into the ocean. She watched it sink. Relief washed over her. But that night, she woke to the sound of dripping water. Her sheets were damp. She turned her head. The doll was on the pillow beside her, soaked, its grin wider than before. By morning, Mara was gone. Her mother found her room in disarray. Furniture overturned, claw marks dug into the wooden floor. The only thing untouched was the Labubu doll, sitting upright on the desk, bone dry. Police marked it as a runaway case. But locals still whisper that on stormy nights, if you pass the thrift shop window, you can see the doll sitting there, glass eyes watching, waiting for someone else to take it home. What would you do if you found this doll at a flea market? Walk away or take it home? Tell us in the comments. And remember, some things don't stay buried.
You don't expect a toy to move. You don't expect it to whisper. And you definitely don't expect it to follow you home. But the Labubu doll, one of the most popular collectibles today, has been linked to some of the creepiest encounters people have ever sent me. Tonight, you'll hear 4 true stories of the Labubu doll that will make you question if you should keep one anywhere near your house. Before we begin, if you like true horror from everyday life, hit subscribe right now. New nightmares every week. Story 1, The Bedside Doll. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who lost sleep over a toy. I was staying at my sister's house for a week, while my apartment was being fumigated. She's a collector. Rows of designer figures on acrylic shelves, glass cases with LED strips, dusted like museum pieces. Her favorites were the Labubu dolls, big glassy eyes, stitched grins that felt a little too wide. She swore they were cute. I disagreed. The guest room she gave me had a nightstand, a lamp, and one of those Labubus sitting right beside the alarm clock. It was posed like it had been mid-laugh and then paused. I told myself not to be ridiculous, set my bag down, and went to brush my teeth. When I came back, I hesitated. I could have sworn the doll's head had turned a few degrees toward the bed. I laughed at myself and climbed under the blanket. Somewhere around 2 a.m, a soft scrape woke me, the kind of sound wood makes when something light drags across it. I rolled over and saw the Labubu on the floor, face down by the baseboard. I picked it up, put it back, and checked the door. Closed. Her cat couldn't have wandered in. I slept with the lamp on after that. Stupid, I know. But I slept. The next night, a thump hit exactly at 3. The doll lay on its back this time, right at the edge of the rug, hands pointed at the bed like it had been reaching. I put it back on the nightstand and pressed it farther from the edge. I told myself the house was old. Floors shifted. Vibrations happened. On night 3, I woke without the thump. Something pulled me out of sleep. A feeling like cold air at the back of my neck. The room was still. Too still. I squinted at the clock. 3:03. When my eyes adjusted, I froze. The Labubu wasn't on the nightstand. It was on the pillow next to mine. Head turned toward me. Stitched smile inches from my face. I flinched so hard, the blanket tangled around my legs. I grabbed the thing by its torso and threw it toward the closet. It hit the carpet in a muffled roll and disappeared in shadow. I didn't sleep again. In the morning light, the room felt tame, almost silly. My sister laughed when I told her, until I pointed to the nightstand. 3 thin scratches ran parallel along the varnish, each about an inch long, right where the doll's little hands would have rested. She ran her finger over them and went quiet. We moved the Labubu to her office. I asked her to keep the guest room clear. She rolled her eyes, but did it. I slept better that night, or I tried to. At 2:59, I woke to the same scrape and a soft tap, like plastic on wood. I told myself not to look. Then I did. The nightstand was empty. The lamp's warm circle of light stopped just short of the floor, and the shadow there felt too thick, like it had weight. I stared until my eyes watered. Nothing moved. At breakfast, my sister mentioned she'd found the doll in the hallway outside my room. She thought her fiancé had put it there to mess with me. He swore he hadn't. That afternoon, I asked if we could lock it in her display case with the others. She agreed. Night 5, I slept with my back to the nightstand, face to the wall like a child. I told myself not to turn around, not to invite anything. At 2:57, I woke anyway. I felt a pressure near my ribs through the blanket. Not heavy, just present. My brain tried to label it. Phone, remote, bunching sheets. I turned slowly. The Labubu sat at my waist on top of the blanket. One hand splayed like it had been pressing down. Its head tilted, smile unchanged. I made a sound I didn't recognize coming from me. I snatched it, ran to the office, and jammed it into the glass case. I locked the case. Then I taped the keyhole with painter's tape. Then I put a chair in front of it, like that would matter. When I finally slept, I dreamed I was lying in the guest room, unable to move, while something small paced along the top edge of the blanket, trying to decide where to step. My sister watched the door cam the next day to prove I'd sleepwalked and moved it. The footage showed me sprinting down the hall in boxers, clutching the doll to my chest like it was a live thing I needed to quarantine. It also showed something else I wish I hadn't seen. 10 minutes earlier, my door had swung open on its own, slowly, like a hand turned the knob from the inside. I left the next morning. My apartment reeked of chemicals, but felt safer than that room. Every once in a while, when I wake at 3 a.m. For no reason, I swear I feel the weight of something small at my side, just enough to sink the blanket half an inch, just enough to remind me that it didn't need to be on the nightstand to be close. Story 2, The Doll in the Closet. I wasn't hunting for a Labubu. I found mine by accident at a thrift shop between a stack of VHS tapes and a bin of costume jewelry. The box was beat up, corners crushed. The doll inside looked new, wrapped in crisp, clear plastic. $10. I bought it because the cashier joked it looked like me when I hadn't slept. I put it on the top shelf of my bedroom closet and forgot about it. A week later, around 2:30 in the morning, I woke to a faint tapping. It took a minute to place it. Not the sink, not the heater. A light, steady tap. Tap, tap, like a single plastic finger wrapping timber. I lay still and listened. It was coming from the closet. I told myself it was a mouse. I opened the door and flicked on the closet light. The Labubu box had shifted forward, so its edge hung over the shelf by half an inch. I pushed it back and shut the door. The next night, the tapping woke me again. When I opened the closet, the box stood upright, as if someone had turned it to face outward. The plastic window reflected the bulb like a cold eye. I pushed it back again and laughed at myself. I hadn't put it that way. I guess gravity had, right? By night 3, the box was sitting on the shelf, like a person would sit on a ledge, toes just over the edge. I didn't touch it that time. I set my phone on a stack of shoe boxes, hit record, and closed the closet door. In the morning, I scrubbed through the video. For the first 20 minutes, nothing. At 2:59 a.m., the closet bulb flared in the footage like it brightened without cause. The image fuzzed, a white smear across the frame. When the picture returned, the box was empty, and the doll sat on the floor of the closet, legs apart, head tilted at the door. I stared at my own hands reflected weakly on the glass screen. I watched it 3 times to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. I grabbed the doll, still sealed inside its inner bag, and the outer box, and walked it to the apartment dumpster. I watched it tumble in. I listened to it land on cardboard. I went back upstairs, opened my closet, and stared at the empty space like it might refill itself. In the morning, I opened the closet and choked on air. The box was back. Same shelf, same tilt, same doll inside plastic, like I hadn't taken it anywhere. I checked the deadbolt and windows. No one had been in. I called the thrift store to ask if anyone had traded in the same thing twice. The clerk told me he didn't even remember selling it. That night, I didn't wait. I drove it to a convenience store 2 neighborhoods away and used the public trash. I watched the bag slide into the can and let the lid slam. I took a picture of the empty passenger seat because I felt insane and needed proof I'd done something. The next morning, the picture was still on my phone, and the doll was back on the closet shelf. I burned it on a friend's patio after that. We sat around the fire pit with beers, while the plastic kinked and shrank, and finally sagged into a black lump that smelled like poison. He made jokes to cut the tension, and I laughed because I needed to. We poured water over the ash and hosed the pit. I slept like a stone for the first time in a week. 2 nights later, the tapping woke me. Softer, like it came from farther away or through something. I told myself it was phantom sound, leftover nerves. I rolled over and faced the wall. I woke again to a light pressure at my back, like a small object had leaned against me through the blanket and then settled. I reached behind me, groggy, and touched nothing. I waited until morning to check the closet. The shelf was empty. The door, however, had 3 little marks near the bottom hinge. Parallel nicks in the paint like something had been set there and dragged. I knelt and put my thumb next to them. They were the width of the doll's tiny fingers. I moved apartments when my lease ended. I told myself it was for more space, closer to work, better light. The truth is, I still hear tapping sometimes, especially if I fall asleep with the closet door cracked. It's faint now, an echo of an echo, but it's the same rhythm. When it happens, I shut the door and put my ear against the wood, and there's never anything there. That's what bothers me most. The silence I hear when I'm trying to prove I'm not hearing anything at all. Story 3, The Doll That Spoke. My friend bought me a Labubu as a prank because I hate dolls. I laughed, said thank you, and stuck it on the highest shelf in my living room, turned slightly away so I wouldn't catch its grin in my periphery. For a month, it was a joke that gathered dust. The first time it spoke, I was folding towels. The TV played in the bedroom, low. The refrigerator hummed. No other sound. I heard it like a breath being shaped into a word right behind my ear. Tonight. I dropped the towel. Hello? I called to no one. I checked the hallway, the bathroom, the bedroom. The TV was at volume 9, a calm talk show. I stood in my doorway longer than necessary and told myself I'd misheard a syllable from the TV. The way your brain invents words out of noise sometimes. At midnight, I walked past the shelf to switch off a lamp. The house felt heavy, like the air had texture. I heard it again, clearer, like the mouth was closer. Tonight. My scalp tightened. I faced the shelf slowly. The doll was where I left it, head canted, smile stitched. I stared until my eyes watered, waiting for anything. Nothing moved. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch and watched the digital clock blink from 12:59 to 3. At 6:30, the sun finally turned the room gray and I dozed for 10 minutes, then 14. I overslept my alarm and left the apartment late, annoyed and fragile, coffee sloshing as I climbed into the car. At the big intersection 2 miles from my place, a pickup barreled through the red and slammed into the lane. I would have been waiting in if I'd left on time. It hit a sedan on the driver's side and spun it into the shoulder. I would have been in that lane. I pulled over and dialed 911 with shaking hands. I thought about the whisper the entire day. When I came home that evening, I stood in front of the shelf, like you stand in front of a grave you don't believe belongs to the person you loved. I moved the doll so it faced the wall. I said out loud, "Thank you." If that was you, the words felt wrong in my mouth. A week went by. The house settled back into itself. I convinced myself stress had played games. Then I started hearing it again, single words like someone had broken a sentence and fed me one piece at a time. Wait, left, don't. Sometimes it came from the hallway as I reached for the knob. Sometimes from the bathroom mirror. Sometimes from right next to the shelf even when I wasn't in that room. It never sounded angry. It sounded small and matter-of-fact, like a pilot reading checklists. I tried to trick it. I slept at a friend's place. I still woke at 2:53, sat up, and heard a whisper I couldn't make out because the air conditioner in his guest room kicked on at the same moment. I laughed in the dark without humor. The next morning we ate pastries and pretended nothing was weird. I stopped telling people about it. The more I spoke, the more it felt real. One Sunday, I was running late for work after the clocks changed. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and my phone and reached for the door. A word landed in my ear like the bass of a song. No. I froze. I stared at the deadbolt because I didn't want to turn around and meet a face that couldn't make words. I stood there long enough to feel ridiculous. Then I stepped outside and locked the door because I hate being controlled by fear. In the parking lot, the neighbor from 3B rested on her walker at the bottom of the stairs. "Don't go that way," she said. I started to ask why when a car clipped the edge of the lot entrance too fast, fishtailed, and smashed the brick mailbox column. It would have hit the sidewalk if anyone had been there. The driver stumbled out, drunk at 8:10 a.m. I felt the whisper echo through my bones. No, I keep the doll. I don't know why. Superstition, maybe. If it's warning me, I'd rather hold on to that than throw it away. If it's an echo of my own brain trying to keep me alive, that's fine too. It hasn't spoken in months, but sometimes when my phone alarm fails and I wake with that electric jolt of being late, I find myself looking to the shelf first before I check the time. Not to see if the doll moved, to see if it's turned back toward me. Story 4. The Doll That Smiled. I worked the overnight stock shift at a toy store wedged between a gym and a nail salon. Nights were easy. Break down boxes, fill peg hooks, listen to the radio. The security cameras were more for show than anything. One feed to the back office monitor, angle bad enough to miss most of what mattered. We got a pallet of collectibles one Tuesday. Vinyl figures, blind boxes, mystery minis. I cut open a carton and found the Labubu cases. 12 per box, glossy art, big grinning creature on the side. I'd seen them on TikTok. People lined up for drops. I didn't get it. Around midnight, I was fronting the aisle, making everything look uniform. I glanced down and paused. One Labubu sat outside its packaging on the middle shelf, legs dangling, grin turned toward the walkway like it was greeting whoever came down. I didn't open it. I know I didn't. I looked around for my coworker to roll his eyes at me and say, "Boo." But he was 2 aisles over arguing with tape that wouldn't stick to a box. I put the figure back into its box and sealed it with a piece of clear tape. I set it on the repack cart and rolled on. 30 minutes later, I looped back with a fresh case. The same Labubu sat again, this time 1 shelf lower, exactly at my eye level. I stared at it long enough to hear my own blood in my ears. I checked the cart. The sealed box was still there. I touched the tape. Smooth. Unbroken. I told myself I'd grabbed another and mixed them up without thinking. I returned the loose one to an empty box, taped it twice, and put both boxes in the locked glass display behind the counter up front. I had a key. Only managers had the other 2. At 2 a.m., I stepped into the office to log counts. The camera monitor flickered through 4 feeds on a loop. Front doors, registers, the back door, collectibles aisle. I watched the aisle feed out of habit. Let it scroll past, then did a double take. On screen, the repack cart sat in the middle of the row. A sealed Labubu box rested on top. As the image looped, a smear of static glitched across the frame like someone had rubbed their thumb on the lens. In the next half second, the tape line on the box wasn't a line anymore. It looked cut. Then the figure sat on the shelf, no human in sight, grinned straight into the camera like it knew where to look. "Hey," I called to the stockroom, trying to keep my voice flat. "Can you come look at this?" My coworker leaned in and squinted. "Old tape?" he said. "Bad camera." He said both like he needed them to be true. We went up front. The 2 Labubu boxes I'd sealed sat inside the glass case where I'd left them. The lock was clicked. No one else had the key. I felt the fine hairs on my arms rise in the air-conditioned cool. We finished the shift on edge. I told myself I'd hallucinated movement because I wanted a break from boredom. I told myself the angle made things look wrong, the way fisheye cameras warp distance. The next night, the store was slower. The gym had a power outage, so we could hear ourselves think. I found a small sticky note on the Collectibles peg wall I hadn't put there. It read, in blocky printing, "Smile." My coworker swore he didn't write it, and I believed him because he couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler. I pulled the note off with 2 fingers like it might bite. I tossed it and did my best not to remember where I'd seen that word freeze on a face. At 2:40 a.m., the office monitor bloomed white again, just as the Collectibles feed cycled. The static this time lasted longer, like someone dragged the edge of a glass across the lens. When the picture returned, the Labubu sat on the top shelf, angled toward the camera. And here's what I wish I could forget. In the half second before the whiteout, the grin on its face looked like it stretched. Not the printed seam, not the molded plastic, but like shadow had moved across it and made it seem wider. "Bad camera," my coworker repeated. He left early that night. I closed alone. I locked every door twice. I counted the cash drawer like it mattered. As I switched off the last bank of lights, the reflection in the front windows showed the Collectibles aisle in dark silhouette. A small shape sat on a middle shelf that should have been empty in the reflection's angle. When I turned around, the shelf was bare. I lined up a dozen boxes dead center and propped a broom across the aisle like a tripwire because it made me feel better. I took the key home with me, even though we weren't supposed to. I slept with it under my pillow like I was 10. 2 mornings later, the opening manager texted me a grainy photo from the front case. One of the Labubu boxes inside had a perfect slit down the seam of the clear tape, clean as if done with a blade. The figure inside faced the glass exactly aligned with the gap, grin pressed to it as close as the plastic would allow. The lock hadn't been tampered with. I quit a month after that, not because of the doll. I told myself that, but because I couldn't walk down that aisle without the feeling of being watched, which is a bad quality for a person tasked with restocking shelves while the world sleeps. Sometimes I catch myself glancing up at the convex mirrors in other stores, expecting to see a small shape on a shelf that isn't there when I turn my head. And sometimes when I hold my phone camera up to scan a barcode, the screen glitches for a breath. Everything smears. And I swear I see a mouth stretch wider than plastic can stretch, just long enough to wonder whether the camera caught something my eyes weren't supposed to. If these made you check your shelves, tap like. It helps push real warnings to people who might need them tonight. If you've had a creepy doll or collectible story, Labubu or otherwise, send it in. Your story could be featured in a future upload. And if you're still here, you're one of us. Subscribe, hit the bell, and don't miss the next nightmare.